In my opinion, college athletes are undoubtedly some of the hardest workers in the world. History of college sports. College sports has been evolving for years now. It has been going on since the early 1900s. College athletics are very successful in the sports market. Every year, college athletics brings in billions of dollars in revenue to the NCAA and to the schools themselves. For those of you who don't know, NCAA stands for the National Collegiate Athletic Association. A college athlete is defined as an amateur level athlete that is not paid in salary but provided by scholarships. An employee is defined as someone who works for someone else or a business in return for payment. Many athletes and sports fans are upset about this topic. Let's look at some of the pros and cons. They put their body on the line every game. They generate billions of dollars each year. They provide relief for their families. Many of these athletes come from nothing and are trying to give back and help their families out. They may stay in college longer, and lastly, they should get what they deserve. The average Division I player is worth about $170,000 per year. Many players leave school early to go to pro, but that would change as they would still be able to get an education while taking care of their families. Basically, the school is making money off these players, off their labor and all their hard work that they put into playing. On the other hand, some people may argue against this. So let's look at some of the cons of this. Unfair compensation between players. A common question that might come to mind is, how would they divide the money up in between players, or they may not go to class, or they could even lose motivation for the game. There's always going to be two sides to a debate, and I could see this debate going on for years and years in the future. I made a short video about this.
So the sound, if there's sound, I think there's a dial up by the, where you punch the, looks like a radio dial from the car. It's on the dash. Up by where you put, yeah, crank your,
Executive Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, said in a speech in 2015, it would be a bad mistake to create campus employer-employee relationships with student athletes. Paying college athletes would distract in a very significant way from pursuing what they really need to pursue, an education. And we need to emphasize the value of that education. But let's think about that for a second. Are student athletes able to receive the full value?
You're talking about college football and basketball. They make so much money, and there's so many people making a living off those student athletes. It's absurd to pretend these are amateurs.
The coaches are making millions coaching players whose families live below the poverty line.
I thought I would be playing professionally right now. I never would have expected to be here.
They're propelling a billion-dollar industry getting sweatsuit for them.
Okay, so today, as much money that flows in and out of sports, I believe that college players should receive some sort of payment for playing for their schools. Some facts about this, $11 billion. The college sports industry generates about $11 billion on average in annual revenues. And these revenues are passed along to NCAA executives, coaches, athletic directors, all in form of salaries, and none of it goes to the players. In a recent college study, About 80% of all students and 83% of athletes agree that college athletes should be paid if their image is used for purposes such as merchandise or stuff like that. They risk their body. These college athletes are putting their bodies at risk of permanent damage without being paid. Now let's look at an example of this.
And you're almost 5:30.
This is Kevin Ware. If you guys don't know, this took place back in 2013. He was a player for the University of Louisville. He was a basketball player. I remember this day like it was yesterday. Someone shot a three. He went up to block it. He fell. His knee snapped in half. It was one of the most gruesome injuries I've ever seen. This is like after this happened, there was a big issue. One of the questions that came to mind was where services being exploited by the NCAA. He was playing for no pay beyond an athletic scholarship. Recap, the pros outweigh the cons. There was more facts that support me. I believe that they're some of the hardest workers in the world. This debate's gonna go on for years and years. And yeah, I believe that they should get paid for all their hard work.
So we'll have the next person get set up. I'll make a few notes. You guys chat.
Oh, shit.
Relax for a second.